What's up, you guys? So in this video, I wanted to discuss some of the hypotheses about how life could have initially arrived on Earth. As a quick background, we understand that all species alive today have descended from a common ancestor. This idea can be explained through Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection. Additionally, according to our modern understanding of cell theory, we know that all cells can only naturally arise from pre-existing cells. So how then did living organisms first appear on Earth? In truth, there is no conclusive answer to this question as of yet. That being said, scientists have been able to provide a few promising hypotheses of ways that life could have arose from non-life with several pieces of supporting experimental evidence. It is predicted that Earth is about 4.5 billion years old according to data from radiometric dating experiments. That being said, the conditions on primitive Earth would have been too hostile for life up until about 3.9 billion years ago. Furthermore, we have evidence to suggest that single-celled prokaryotic organisms, or bacteria, lived on Earth as early as 3.5 billion years ago. This evidence comes in the form of stromatolites. Stromatolites are layers of rock that have naturally been built up by photosynthetic bacteria. These bacteria do this by building a thin layer of sediment and then migrating upwards to the surface to start working on the next layer. Some stromatolites are actively being formed by photosynthetic prokaryotes today in shallow salty bays such as Shark Bay in Western Australia. Some stromatolites discovered on Earth date back to 3.5 billion years ago, which suggests that photosynthetic prokaryotes must have existed around this time. Considering this information, we can assume that life on Earth must have begun sometime between 3.9 billion years ago and 3.5 billion years ago. Abiogenesis can be defined as the formation of living organisms through abiotic or non-living processes. Scientists hypothesize that abiogenesis could have occurred between 3.9 and 3.5 billion years ago through a series of steps. As a first step, organic molecules such as amino acids and nucleotides would have initially arrived or abiotically formed on Earth. Next, these monomers would have assembled into polymers such as proteins or nucleic acids over long periods of time. After that, protocells, or simplistic membrane-enclosed structures, likely formed, which would have enclosed some of the polymers previously described. Finally, self-replicating molecules would have arisen, which would have made the inheritance of said molecules possible. Starting with the first step, there are two potential ways that organic matter could have originated on Earth. The first way is that inorganic precursor molecules found on primitive Earth could have chemically reacted to form organic molecules as a result of available free energy from natural processes and an absence of atmospheric oxygen. Evidence for this hypothesis comes from experiments such as the Miller-Urey experiment from 1953. In this experiment, graduate student Stanley Miller, who had been working in the lab of Nobel laureate Harold Urey, constructed a closed-system apparatus that mimicked the conditions of primitive Earth. In one compartment of this apparatus, he heated water to create water vapor, which represented the water vapor released into the air from the seas. The water vapor then entered another compartment that contained various gaseous compounds believed to have occupied Earth's atmosphere at that time. Additionally, electrical sparks within this atmospheric chamber simulated the influence of lightning in the atmosphere. The water vapor then passed through a condenser that represented the natural phenomenon of condensation, causing water droplets to form and precipitation to occur. Towards the end of the whole apparatus, there was a knob where samples of water could be removed from the system for chemical analysis. What Miller found was that this system, representing the natural conditions and water cycle of primordial Earth, was able to naturally generate organic molecules such as select amino acids and hydrocarbon chains. Since the Miller-Urey experiment, scientists have since carried out similar experiments showing that available free energy provided by conditions near volcanoes or deep-sea thermal vents, rather than from lightning, could have also naturally generated organic compounds. Another plausible hypothesis is that organic molecules could have been transported to Earth by a meteorite or other celestial event. Fragments of a 4.5 billion year old meteorite that fell to Earth in Australia in 1969, for example, was shown to contain lipids, simple sugars, the nitrogenous base uracil, and over 80 different types of amino acids. After organic molecules originated on Earth, some of these molecules would have needed to polymerize to create macromolecules such as proteins or nucleic acids. As a possible explanation, scientists have shown that polymers such as these can be produced in the lab in the absence of enzymes by simply dripping dilute solutions of amino acids or RNA nucleotides onto hot sand, clay, or rock. These solutions would have evaporated, allowing these monomers to concentrate and eventually form bonds that would link these monomers together into polymers. Once we had polymers, it is hypothesized that protocells, or droplets of membranes that isolate internal chemical conditions from external chemical conditions, would have eventually formed around the polymers. Laboratory experiments have demonstrated that these structures naturally form when select lipids are added to water, and these structures form even quicker when clay is added into the mix. Finally, it is hypothesized that self-replicating RNA rather than DNA became the first genetic material of these protocells. This is because RNA is generally more versatile than DNA, in that RNA molecules have been known to be both carriers of genetic information as well as catalysts of chemical reactions. RNA-based catalysts are known as ribozymes, as opposed to protein-based catalysts, which we call enzymes. Because of the multiple roles that RNA would have played in this proposed explanation, we sometimes refer to it as the Rna World Hypothesis. Scientific evidence in support of the Rna World Hypothesis comes from experiments such as those published in 2013, where scientists were able to successfully construct self-replicating protocells with an RNA-based genome. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and if you have found this video to be helpful, feel free to give the video a like or to subscribe to my channel for more videos to come.